Good evening and welcome to Ghana Shot. I have with me Colonel Rajeev Agarwal, and at the outset, Rajiv, welcome to Ghana Shot once again. We met day before yesterday on the Trump as he's roaring back. But today we're going to talk of the Middle East. A very good evening to you at the outset, right?
Thank you, sir. Same to
Uh,
you.
yeah, what we're going to talk today is about what are the possible end games in West Asia. West Asia was heading towards uh, some kind of peaceful situation. We were talking of IMEC. We were talking of some possible deal of between Israel and Saudi. Already, the in 2020, the Abraham Accord had been signed. Abraham Accord, for those of you who don't know or not familiar with it, the accords between Israel and Morocco, Israel and Bahrain, and Israel and I'm forgetting one
UAE.
more, UAE. Yeah,
UAE.
right. Yeah, UAE. Then there was also the I2U2 which had come up. India, Israel, UAE, and USA.
Yes.
IMEC was being spoken of. The G20 had been held, and a lot of things. When the Hamas decided they'll do Al Aqsa, the flood on October 7th, year before last. And since then, the entire Middle East is in turmoil. As days went by one, everyone got sucked in. Hezbollah got sucked in. The Houthis got into the game. Iran came into the game in a big way, right? And then people started taking positions. China, Russia, Turkey, and slowly everything started thing. Then we saw direct conflict between Iran and Israel. A
Yes, sir.
whole lot of missile war went on. Two rounds of that went on. There was a stage when we felt that it could go nuclear, and suddenly, then Israel mounted an attack on those famous pager attacks on Hezbollah. They decapitated Hezbollah leadership very clearly with Hassan Nasrallah. Then they assassinated Israel Hania in
Iran.
Iran, and then Yahya Sinwar was finished off in Hamas. And then, of course, as everything was going this way, the big backbreaker in this whole story was the fall of Assad. And Syria went into a tailspin, and that actually flattened everyone out. And the whole scene has changed. Uh, is there an end game here? What is Israel's end game? What is Hamas' end game? What is America's end game? What is China's stake in this whole story? Where does this whole story leave Russia? Where does it leave the Middle East and the tussle between Saudi Arabia and Iran? And of course, the eternal third part of the triangle of this is Turkey. Where do all these people stand and where are they going ahead? And to talk about all this is Colonel Rajeev Agarwal, who writes extensively. I think if he writes extensively on all the best media platforms in India, including Hindu, First Post. Today also he's written in First Post of the forthcoming struggle as he sees it, or issues between Taliban and Trump. So, he's largely understated, but he writes and he understands the Middle East very well. And that's why I've called him. So, what I would request Rajiv to do is take on the issue of what's the current state of affairs in Gaza and Hamas and, Israel and Jenin. In fact, even today in West Bank, there were some issues. So, give us an idea of that, and then we'll talk of the larger picture. Over to you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for having me again on the show. So, like you said, sir, you gave the whole span of events that have happened in last 2 years, and if one really sits down and starts chronologizing this event, it looks very unreal that all this could have happened in just about 15 to 16 months. Normally, this kind of a churn would take decades to happen, but it has all happened in a compressed time. And I don't know whether, as you have said, the end game in West Asia is near or not, but definitely it is at a very, very critical inflection point where something has to happen in next 6 months in the short term and 4 to 5 years in the middle term. Because if this period goes, unresolved, or not resolving the issues in this period of about 4 to 5 years till the time the next U.S. administration takes place, then nothing is going to happen in Middle East. That is what my reading is, and I'll be studying and writing more on it. So coming to the current situation, sir, the ceasefire has finally come about on 19th January, and today is the fifth day, and largely it is holding. There be no bombings, no airstrikes. The aid is flowing in. I just saw the evening report. In these 5 days, 3,250 trucks have already come in, which is as per the stated goal of 600 trucks for aid coming into Gaza. So things are happening in Gaza. The first set of hostages have been exchanged. Three Israeli female soldiers were released, and 90 Palestinians were released. And Hamas has already assured that the next batch of four would be released on Saturday, that is 25th of January. So if you see, largely on the surface, the ceasefire is holding, and that is what it's would look like. But there are a number of undercurrents that are happening, which to my mind, make it very suspicious whether the ceasefire will hold for a longer time. And I will just go sequentially on what is happening in the meantime when the ceasefire is holding. And I'll start with Israel. So the day ceasefire came into effect, their security minister Ben Gvir resigned, because he had already said that he is totally opposed to the ceasefire, and he has left the war cabinet. The second far right minister, Smotrich, who is the finance minister, he has voted against the deal but has stayed back. Presumably, there is some understanding between Netanyahu and Smotrich regarding the first phase of ceasefire, or the end of first phase of ceasefire, and what is going to happen thereafter. 2 days back, IDF chief and the Southern Army Command, which was responsible for the security operations across Gaza, both have resigned. And so that is a one domino which has fallen, which was, which is a big statement as far as this Gaza operations are concerned. Because after this, the next head is only of Netanyahu, who's just not going to go down. And there is a lot of pressure on Netanyahu's government in Israel, both internally and externally. The hostages' families are building up pressure like never before, because they do not know, firstly, which are the hostages who are going to be finally released, whether they are their loved ones or not, and secondly, what is their condition. And the biggest apprehension is whether after the 33 hostages deal finishes in the first phase, there will be a continuation of ceasefire or not. That doubt is being created in everybody's mind within Israel also. And externally, there's huge pressure both from the region as well as from the United States that the ceasefire, should continue and end towards some plausible solution to end this war permanently.
So
The
what you're saying is there's a lot of churn happening in Israel. So
within
maybe
Israel,
in the
yes.
next, yeah, maybe within the first phase itself, the leadership in Israel might change. As it is, the defense minister's out, and the army chief is also given his thrown his hat. And for those of you who don't know, let me put it across: the Israel parliament is as divided. It is worse divided than us. Netanyahu is running a coalition government, and that coalition government also is very deeply divided. And you will find in the Israeli parliament, people right from the far left to the far right, every guy is there, and there are groups and coalition groups as low, little as three or four guys also. So that is something which I think will have a big, say in the final outcomes which happen. So your view on this?
Absolutely, sir. I don't know whether Netanyahu will go, but all this churn that is happening is putting a lot of pressure on him. And to me, I will not even wait to see what happens on 42nd day, which is the 1st of March, for the first phase of ceasefire to, close, and the second phase to start. I would be interested in seeing what happens on the 16th day, because 16th day is the day when the talks for the second phase of ceasefire have to commence, and they have to work out the nitty gritties. And the Qatari Prime Minister, who was, the hub of the final ceasefire deal which came about, he's also expressed his apprehension, and he's saying, I don't want to wait till the 16th day. I want to start this negotiation for the second phase as soon as possible, because he knows that second phase is going to be the most difficult. And if the talks don't start in time, it is not likely to commence in time. And if there's a case of extension of phase one or a break in ceasefire, then it is going to go in a very, very downward spiral, which will not be able to, then resolve it so soon.
Okay.
The second thing is the United States, which is, the biggest player in this. And Trump himself, when asked by the reporter after his swearing in, he said that Gaza has been demolished, devastated, etc., and he's not sure whether the ceasefire will hold. So that is
Okay.
interesting, because he had said that all hell would break loose before coming to power, and I think his intention was that his presidency should start with this kind of a positive note, where he can boast that he got the thing done even before he was in the chair, and he has got it done. But now he himself is saying is unsure. There are reports in the media that Netanyahu is going to Washington in next week to have a talk with Trump on how to progress this, deal. The the U.S. ambassador who has been nominated to the United Nations, he's made a very controversial statement in her confirmation hearing, saying that Israel has the biblical right to occupy the entire West Bank because of Jerusalem being in it. And so when you tie up all these threads, it paints a very scary picture as far as the future of ceasefire is concerned. Plus, the pictures that are coming out of Gaza, one is the victory celebrations of the Hamas when the first set of Israeli hostages were released, as also once the released people from Israeli prison, they reach back to Gaza. Suddenly, people are realizing that Hamas has not been obliterated from the ground. They are still there. And Blinken, the outgoing Secretary of State himself, said that over the period of these 15 months, Hamas has been able to recoup almost all the fighters that it has lost. So when you come to realize this and you review the war objectives that Israel had set for itself, that Gaza should be flattened to the ground. It has not been flattened. Hamas should be obliterated. It has not obliterated. Yes, it has suffered severe setbacks. It's Hania has been killed. Yahya Sinwar has been
Anwar.
killed. Lots of cadres have been killed. Tunnels have been exposed, but it is still there. And who's monitoring, and who's aiding, and who's supervising the delivery of aid to the people in Gaza? It is the Hamas. The UN agencies are ensuring that the 600 odd trucks are able to enter Gaza. They're able to reach the spots where the delivery is to be made, but they do not have that many people who can ensure the final delivery to the final family. That is being done by the Hamas cadres. So again, it shows that how deeply embedded Hamas is into the Gazan society, and how Israel has not been able to achieve what it wanted to in Gaza in the 15 months.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point you made, that Gaza is still under Hamas control and it's not out. And of course, simultaneously, the West Bank is under the Palestinian Authority control, right? So there's a rift between the Palestinians, but Hamas is not completely obliterated. And organizations like Hamas, new leaders will come up and new leaders will take over. So will there be peace? I don't know. I don't think so personally. And all this business of reconstruction and all that only gives grist. If you're going to put reconstruction, they'll also reconstruct the tunnels. It's something like that. Who'll
Absolutely.
monitor that? Because a lot of infrastructure, in fact, everything has been destroyed in Gaza. So a lot of reconstruction will be required. If reconstruction on top is taking place, underneath also it will take place. So what are your views on that?
Sir, absolutely, it is bound to happen, and there is no way that any international agency or UN agency can, ensure it to the last brick, last bag of cement, and last barrel of fuel, how it is being utilized. And earlier also the entire network of 500 odd kilometers of tunnel network that Hamas had created, it was only by stealing part of the aid that was coming into Gaza.
Yeah,
So it is not that they got a separate grant or separate, infrastructure material coming into Gaza unseen by the Israeli forces who are always on the lookout in the Gaza. So this kind of pilferage and sidestepping is bound to happen, and it will happen. So the question is, what and which is still an unresolved question in any forum that you go, whether you are talking to Israelis, whether you're talking to US, whether you're talking to the Arabs. What is the day after? What is the situation day after that they have thought for themselves? And yesterday I caught two bits of bites from the US administration, where they said that firstly they have not promised anything regarding a reformed Palestinian Authority running Gaza. And secondly, they said that in the normalization deal which is happening with Saudi Arabia, and which is likely to kickstart again after some kind of a settlement happens or in Gaza, that we have never promised that a state of Palestine will be a precondition to the normalization deal with Saudi Arabia. So these two again give you an indication that there is a lot of churn that is going to happen. There's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of clarity as far as the future of Gaza is concerned.
yeah. What you're saying is that look, the political outcomes are still hazy. The military outcomes, if the political outcomes are hazy, the military outcomes will follow. Something will happen. So we are not going to get peace. We're going to get a temporary reprieve from this whole violence. That's the way I look at it. And since you mentioned about USA twice, let me put it across to everyone. Two, three issues. What are America's interests in this whole issue? Let me list it out. Uh, the first is that it wants to protect Israel. Israel has to be protected, and I think that has come across by many people in the Trump administration. Like you rightly said about the UN ambassador. The US new ambassador to UN.
United
I
Nations.
think she's a lady. She's a lady, Eric
Yes.
something. I'm forgetting her name. Right. She has said that it is
Elise
a
Stefanik.
biblical. Yeah, Erin.
Elise
Yeah, Erin
Stefanik.
Stefanik. Yeah. So she has very clearly said that that land is of Israel. Okay. Then of course they would like to save Palestine because there's an element within America who feel that Palestine. I mean, after all, what do you do with all those people? 4 million people. So you have to save that people. Oh, I don't think the the two-state theory will come through. That's out. Um, yeah, they would, in the larger game, I think USA would like to keep a check on Iran, though we'll talk of Iran a little later. And it would like to keep even China and Russia out of the deal because they're already on the sidelines. And it might like to revive the Abraham Accords fully and work towards the Israel Saudi deal. So let's can you spend a minute on this aspect of you know US interests and then go where you want.
Absolutely, sir. I mean, all the points that you have listed would have been part of the talk that the US envoy Witkoff when he
Yeah,
went to meet Netanyahu on 10th January, because the sense I get, and that is what I wrote also in my analysis, that the sense I got was how Netanyahu capitulated on 10th of January and agreed to the deal despite there being no change in the deal practically for the last so many months, was that the message from Trump, firstly, that it has to be got done before he is sworn in. Secondly, there was a sense that there's nothing more that can be achieved militarily in Gaza just by hanging around with your troops and carrying out sporadic attacks and everyday airstrikes. Whatever was uh, uh, to be done has been done, and nothing more is going to be achieved except for negative publicity and international opinion. But more than that, what I feel is the larger picture was painted to the Israeli administration, that it is not Gaza that is the end game. The end game for everything that is happening is twofold. One is mainstreaming of Israel into the region, that is the
yeah,
continuation of Abraham Accord 2.0. And second is to isolate and target Iran, which is the primary, enemy number one, as they call it, to target Iran in a manner that it can never raise its head again in the region to trouble Israel. And that was the bigger picture to my mind, which was thrown at Netanyahu, along with the Trump threat, that finally made him succumb and sign the deal, because he also had to carry the story back to his security cabinet for them to agree. So this is what I think are the two points of reference.
Well, let's discuss these 2 points. Let's discuss whether the Abraham Accords 2.0 will happen, or and how. Let's talk of Iran, because one the moment you talk of Iran, Russia, China, all those will come up. So let's talk of this first, Abraham Accords 2.0.
So Abraham Accords, sir, if you remember, they came about. They were signed, as I would say it personally, in a hurry. They were signed on 20th September 2020, at the height of the presidential election campaign, which was going on when Trump was seeking his second term, and just about 7 weeks before the election day of November 2020. And the whole promise of Abraham Accord for Israel was that it was to normalize its relation, seek and get diplomatic acceptance within the region. However, to my mind, Abraham Accords skipped through the very basic problem of the region, which was the Palestinian issue. And
Yeah,
no Abraham Accord or no accord could have succeeded without addressing the core issue of the region, which is the Palestinian issue. There was some reference in the text that Palestinian issue will be put up for a resolution, etc., etc. I don't remember the exact word. There was some reference to it, especially in the accord that was signed with UAE, but nothing more than that. So now coming to Abraham Accord 2.0, why did 7th October happen? 7th October happened not only because Hamas wanted it, because on 23rd of September 2023, the statement from Saudi and the US, combined teams that were working, were that the semi-final is over and now we are just waiting for the final
final.
normalization deal to be signed. If Saudi Arabia had signed the normalization deal with Israel, then the Hamas 710 terror attack would have been meaningless, and it may not have happened. Just because the 710 terror attack took place, the Saudi normalization deal was put on the side burner. And once again, the Palestinian issue has become the centerpiece of anything that is to happen in the West Asian region. So,
Yeah,
when you come to think of Abraham Accords 2.0, how do you progress it till the time you find at least a face saving solution for the Palestinian situation?
but let me put it. Let me give you the other way. Can anything else be better at this point of time than what it is? Because one, Palestine or Hamas, even at its point, can't recreate some October 7 point, whatever happened then. Alexa the flood. One. Secondly, it has actually brought everyone into the deal. Hezbollah, Hamas, Lebanon came in, Syria came in, Iraq came in, Iran came in, everyone got in, and everyone's burnt his fingers. So even if something Hamas does, firstly, Hamas doesn't have the capability to do so. Even if it does anything, people will say, "यार छोड़ दो उसको." And now people are talking of sending Palestinians off to Indonesia and some island also. So I mean, my view is that if this is not a better chance to sign Abraham Accords 2.0, no, nothing else will be. The logical political outcome of this entire 1.5 years should have been either you seek peace and a peace treaty in Hamas, okay, right? If not, suppress the Hamas Palestine issue by going ahead with the Abraham Accords 2.0. Uh, do you find a third option in this?
No, sir, you're absolutely right. There is no better time than today to get forward movement on Abraham Accords. But what I am saying is, how do you get to the Abraham Accords 2.0 is by getting some face saving solution for Gaza and Palestine. And with all the actors so weak, Hamas is defeated, Hezbollah is demolished, Syria is no longer a ally of Iran. Iran is having its own problems as far as internal domestic problems, political issues, succession problems, economy in a bad shape, etc. So if we do not get a solution to the Palestinian issue, which is, I would say, quote unquote, favorable to the Israeli position and acceptable to the Arab world, then there is no other time. So,
Yeah, let's see how it pans out. I mean, we don't know because how things will pan out in this. That's the way I look at it. But while like I said, every war has to end with a political solution. Yeah, I agree with you. The political solution here is completely, below par. So let us see how it goes, right? And okay, let's talk about Iran. So where do you see Iran, and how do you see the situation panning out in Iran?
Iran, sir, absolutely is in a bad shape, and it is being battered from all fronts. And 1 year back, it could not have thought that this would be the case. And from an Iranian standpoint, the kind of battering that Hezbollah has achieved, has endured, including the elimination of its entire top 2 or 3 tiers of leadership and Nasrallah, uh, Iran would have taken it. The kind of beating that Hamas has taken, Iran would have taken it. But I think the biggest and domino to fall as far as Iran's strategy in the region was the fall of Assad regime in Syria. That has made both a physical, a psychological, as well as a political, setback for Iran, from which it is finding it very difficult to recover. Now, openly, the generals are saying within Iran, whether it's a IRGC general, whether it's an aerospace commander, that this is our biggest defeat, and Syria has been a disaster as far as we are concerned. So Iran is in a bad shape as far as region is concerned. It has taken two hits, one in April and one in October from Israel. So what that has done is it has removed that psychological barrier which Israel had for such a long time, so many years, that it had to fly to Iran and carry out a formal military airstrike. So that psychological barrier is also broken. Its air defenses in poor shape have been exposed. It does not have an air force. It is running to Russia to get Su-35s, S-400s in a big way as quickly as possible. But that is going to take time. The equipment, is not the thing. The manpower behind it, the whole tactics behind
Yeah,
it, the
it'll
deployments.
that if you start today, it'll take 3 years minimum. That's the minimum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. So even if they start getting these shipments, going to take. So Iran's strategy was to fight the war well away from its borders, 1,800 kilometers away. It could have Hamas, Hezbollah, PIJ, everybody fighting Israel, but it was safe on its border because it was sitting pretty 1,800 kilometers away with Syria and Iraq as its buffers. Now that is not there. Domestically, so many controversies have happened, including the hijab controversy, etc., which have been contested by civil rights group in Iran, and obviously the United States and others, people who want to instigate such things, are taking advantage of it. Politically, they lost their President Riasi, who was likely contender to becoming the next supreme leader when Khamenei goes. And now they do not know what is going to happen. The supreme leader has crossed 85 years. He is in a bad health shape. And there was some reports in November after Nasrullah was eliminated and all that, that he's had a secret meeting with the Guardian Assembly and Assembly of Experts, and nominated his own son Murtaza
Yeah,
as the successor. And that may not go down well, because the whole Iranian revolution came about to topple a monarchy, and monarchy works on succession. So if his son becomes the next supreme leader, it defies the total foundation of what the Iranian revolution and the regime came about. And then you come to the economy. Imagine the president had to publicly apologize to the public for the power cuts that the Iranian people are facing in acute winters, and the subsidies that he has to withdraw. So Iran, internally, domestically, politically, and within the region, is in the weakest position that it can be. The only thing that it is holding on to is its nuclear program, which it is not ready to budge or give. But the only thing is, as Jawad Sharif also said the other day, and their foreign minister, that they are ready for any constructive talks with the United States, because they know that any maximum pressure policy which was imposed by Trump in his first term, that will have a disastrous impact on Iran's economy, which is already
Iran.
reeling very bad.
Yeah, you think this business of, it can revive itself with the help of Russia and China and Pakistan and all that, which is being spoken of?
Sir, a lot of people underestimate Iran, and they say that economic sanctions and isolating Iran, not letting any technology get in, is going to break it. But it has survived for 40 years under much tougher sanctions than what exists today. So Iranian regime has always been able to rally its people whenever there's such kind of a catastrophic effect on its country, especially the sanction. And thankfully, it has had allies like Russia and China who have always been there to bail it out. On 17 January, just a few days back, Pezeshkian was in Moscow and they've signed a strategic partnership agreement with Russia. It already has a 25-year strategic partnership agreement with
With
China.
China.
So it has got key,
You can't rule it out.
non-Western powers which are supporting it.
Yeah, so you can't rule Iran out. And that's the history also. When everyone thought, I go back to the time when I was a young officer, and I remember reading about the Iran-Iraq war. Everyone thought that Iran will keel over, but still, ultimately, they pushed Iraq back. Half of Iran was lost those days. So, Iran is in a very difficult position, but it has the national character and strength to revive itself. And it has got the
Absolutely.
strategic partnerships in Russia and China to help it out. But that's a different ball game about Russia and China, whether they can help or not. We'll see. So, what are your views about the Gulf countries and Saudis, and where do you think what is the fallout on these people, and where do you think see the end game for these fellows?
So, I mean, sir, Arab countries have taken a very, very interesting position in this war, which was, kind of unexpected in some sense. So, while Qatar and Turkey and Egypt, they were fighting for the ceasefire and condemning Israeli attacks and everything, going up to the extent of saying that these are the red lines, and moment Israel crosses it, we may be forced to take direct action. The two important countries, they were very silent and they watched from the sidelines, and that is Saudi Arabia and UAE.
Mm.
And as I have written so many times, they had a very ambivalent position on the whole issue. When it came to some very critical things, like when Israel took a airstrike into Iran, or when Hassan Nasrallah was killed, they issued statements of condemnation that this is not there. On 11th November, when they had a extraordinary meeting of the OIC and Arab League, they said that we vow to protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iran. But overall, if you see, compared to how the major Arab countries have reacted to such wars in Gaza in the past, I would say Saudi Arabia and UAE have maintained a very, very quiet and ambivalent position, watching from the sidelines, and that is because how would Saudi Arabia have reached the point of signing a deal with Israel in September 2023 without the Palestinian issue having been resolved? For Saudi Arabia, they have moved beyond Palestinian issue. Now, Palestinian issue is a anchor which is weighing them down, but it is not something that they want to carry it forward for as a part of their progress for Saudi Vision 230 or UAE Vision
Yeah.
2035. They are looking much beyond that.
So what you're saying is Saudi and UAE, both of them are steering towards something else, which where Palestine doesn't figure high up in their order of priorities. So to that extent, you see, actually, what you said, Saudi UAE have held back. Iran is in a bad shape, and Hamas is now left holding the candle. So the Palestinian issue has no solution. It is in this that I see a path forward. They'll cobble up some deal, maybe in the form of economic deal like IMEC, revival of IMEC or something within the next 5, 6 months, and then hope for normalization. I mean, otherwise, I don't see any political treaty happening in this whole story. Your views on that?
Sir, absolutely. If I was to advise the United States or the Israel, I would say that there cannot be a better time to give some kind of a lollipop solution to the Palestinian issue and get this
Mm.
done with, so that the region can move on. Region is also
Yeah,
wanting to move on.
go on.
You could not do it when the region was strong and totally committed to Palestine. Now, when everybody is battered and bruised, who are fighting for Palestine, this thing, and the people who thought or who used to maintain it as a core issue in any regional context, do not find it weighty enough to weigh them down in their progress towards other things in life. There cannot be a better time to find a deal which will be, which will have something what we in India used to have with coalition governments, common minimum program. So
Yeah,
you find a deal which has a common minimum program, get done with it, and then move on with life.
yeah, okay. I take that. Then let's talk a little about Lebanon. Lebanon has always been a key pivotal state in this area. Will Lebanon enter a post-Hezbollah thing, or will Hezbollah revive and all that? Because a lot depends on how Lebanon as a whole behaves. Because we must remember, Lebanon has an army which doesn't is largely ineffective, and it has this Hezbollah, which is a army and a state rolled together, and virtually they've been holding a state within a state kind of a concept, Hezbollah within Lebanon. So what do you see the future of Lebanon in this whole story, the way things are panned out?
So Lebanon was very, very crucial, even more crucial to than Hamas to Iran in its regional strategy against Iran because of the presence of Hezbollah. And in last 20 years, especially after the 2006 war ended with Israel, Hezbollah had really come up both technologically in terms of the quality of military hardware that it got from Iran, in terms of the cadres, in terms of military tactics, etc. But now Hezbollah is down, and the West is very hard in pursuing a strategy that now Lebanon should firstly stabilize, because Lebanon has been having an interim government for last 3 to 4 years, because Hezbollah was not ready to sign on any deal for a permanent government. They
Yeah,
wanted its own influence, which the other political parties were not ready to sign out. So now the arrangement in Lebanon is being so orchestrated that firstly there cannot be a return of Hezbollah in next whatever term or time that you can think of. And secondly, the Lebanese government should be unfavorably disposed towards Iran. So what have they done? They have chosen the military chief who was backed by the United States and the other Western countries as their president, and he has already been sworn in. And they have nominated Names Salam, who's again a pro-reform person, as the prime minister, who was the earlier president of International Court of Justice. And today also, I saw his statement wherein he was, being trying to be bullied by the other political parties and this thing for the names and portfolios of the minister. He said, "I'm not a rubber stamp prime minister who will be bulldozed into any kind of a deal." Plus, the Lebanese prime minister and the president have made it very clear that they will only the Lebanese army will be armed, and there will be no other armed groups in the country, making it very clear that Hezbollah, does not have any legitimacy in case they are able to do it. There's one issue more on Lebanon, which is there, that the 60-day ceasefire with Lebanon and Hezbollah and Israel in southern Lebanon is to end on 26th of January, 2 days from now. And at the end of this 60-day period, the Hezbollah was supposed to withdraw north of the Litani River, and the Israeli forces were to withdraw completely and come down to its own borders, and the entire space was to occupied by the Lebanese forces. Nothing has happened till now.
yeah,
Israeli forces are still there, and there's already a talk that Israel would be seeking an extension of some time from the United States and France for moving its troops back. and that may backfire because Hezbollah, in whatever stage it is weakened and defeated, it is not down and out. And Israel could not make much of a headway in the southern Lebanon, even when it had all its best of the military capability. So this is going to be one decision point that I'm looking at.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is important. The point which you made is that, look, the future of Lebanon is important for the future of peace in this area. How Lebanon pans out. And you reminded everyone that the Israeli forces are still in Lebanon. They have not come out. That ceasefire is on the verge of finishing, and there's nothing more in view. And the transformation of Lebanon into a uh, post Hezbollah
Hezbollah.
scenario where Hezbollah doesn't do thing is going to be a difficult affair. It's not going to be easy because it's going to reverse something which has happened over the past 15, 20 years. It's not going to be an easy affair. In fact, Hezbollah itself has roots going back to 30 years. So I don't see that happening in a hurry.
Absolutely.
But what has also not happened in a hurry is re-establishment of all these links which Iran had between Iran, Iraq, Syria, and thing. For the simple reason that Syria is in a mess. So we'll spend a few minutes on Syria. Where is Syria headed? Where do you think this thing? Because there's an old saying that if you want war in the Middle East, you should go to Egypt. If you want peace in Middle East, you should go to Syria. And Syria is not at peace. If Syria is not at peace, the entire Middle East will not be at peace. So, in that thing, what do you see the current state of Syria, and where do you think it's going?
I agree with you, sir. Only thing it has to be reversed. If you want war, you go to Syria, and if you want peace, you come to Egypt in the current context.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Syria,
yeah,
Syria was a huge surprise which nobody saw. I was there at another panel 2 days back. There were a number of West Asian scholars there, and everybody admitted that whether in India, obviously we are so far off, but even the Arab scholars, nobody saw the way Syria went down in a matter of 8 to 9 days. So that was a huge thing. But now what is happening in Syria is very, very interesting and it is very heavily contested. And you are right, it is going to lay down the framework of what is going to happen in the region in next few months at least.
yeah.
So
There's no
what is
group
happening in
with. Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, what is happening in Syria is the HTS, now led by Julani or Al Shara as he calls himself, is in Damascus, and they are calling the shots. Unlike Taliban in Afghanistan, which stuck to its ideology and this and that for months and years, and because of it, it remains isolated. Al Shara was smart. The day he took over power in Syria, he changed himself physically also, and he changed himself ideologically also. And now he is the a person who's being sought after by everyone within the region and outside. The first country that he traveled or sent as minister was, I think, Saudi Arabia. You have had the French, the German foreign ministers visiting Syria. His missionary is going all over the world, and so he's very clear that there cannot be a repeat of the Taliban example as far as Syria is concerned. However, not everything is hunky dory as far as Syria is concerned. In the north, you had the Syrian National Army, which was supported by Turkey. It has taken large swaths of land and it is still holding on. And then on the north and east side, almost up to the Euphrates River, that is almost you can say one third of Syria is under the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are the Kurdish forces, and the
Yeah,
Kurdish forces are the ones which have been fighting with Turkey for so many years as a part of their drive to have a independent autonomous Kurdish land, and there are still contestations which are going on in its the Al Shara has said that he wants a reconciliation, and Turkey may agree to it, but the SDF has made it very clear that till the time they have a major pie in the governance of Syria, they are not going to let go. And
yeah,
then you have the opportunity which has been exploited by Israel, where they have gone well beyond the Golan Height or the 1974 disengagement line, and they are, as they say, 25 to 28 kilometers short of Damascus. They have
Damascus.
occupied the highest peak, Mount Hermon, which gives them absolute bird eye view over the entire Syrian capital and its area. And then you have the city of Dara, from where everything started in 2011, the civil war. And you have unnamed and unidentified groups who are occupying almost 60 kilometers either side of Dara, which again becomes a very contested kind of a situation. So Turkey is not out of the woods. The only effort that the entire Western community is trying to have is that Turkey should not fall back in the influence circle of Iran. Iran made it
Syria,
very
Syria,
clear.
Syria, Syria, Syria. You're talking of
Sorry,
Syria, no?
Uh,
Syria.
Syria should not fall back into the sphere of influence of Iran. Iran, although it was taken aback by what happened in Syria, it made a statement. I think its foreign minister made a statement that we will talk and communicate and collaborate with whichever kind of regime comes in Syria. But that is what was going to be the tussle of how Syria shapes up internally within its borders, and externally how it is able to either dissuade the influence efforts of Iran, or it is able to go back into the influence circle of Iran in times to come.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Syria. Syria is, again, the mess is not out. Till such time the mess is not out of Syria, there's no stability. It's partial stability. It's still seeking. It's in a pretty unstable state. Militarily, it might be stable, but politically, it's far from stable. So let's
And
look at,
one more
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
development which took place yesterday was that the new Syrian government has cancelled the lease which was there of 49 years for Russia to maintain its ports in Tartus and Latakia.
yes. So that's
So,
there. So if
so
that is gone, so yeah. So I was about to actually get there only. So
yeah, so
now
I
let's
mean
look at,
the whole
yeah. Go
thing that
ahead.
was being talked about was that on 27th November, when HTS combined forces, they started rolling down from north onwards to Damascus. Uh, Assad was very much in knowledge of it, and 28th November, the very next day, or 29th November, he was in Moscow trying to meet Putin to bail him out. And as per whatever reports we know, Putin made him wait, and ultimately, I don't think Assad met him, and he had to come back. And that was a clear
Yeah.
signal that there's going to be no bailing out this time. And Assad melted away on 8th or 9th of December without a fight. So now, contrary to what happened or what may have happened, because there's nothing, no surety about such thing. The yesterday's announcement that the lease has been cancelled is a big setback as far as Russia is concerned. In
Russia
case
is concerned.
Russia had a quiet deal about retaining its assets in Syria if they did not intervene.
So that's gone. So Russian influence in this region is going to take a huge setback because now they have to relocate to Libya, as I understand,
Yes,
Benghazi.
yes.
So in which case, if the base goes, that air base, the naval base goes, then air base also will go. The Kemem air base also will go. So Russia will not have a leg to stand in the entire Middle East, which is a major, major, major development, right? It'll retain its influence in North Africa through Libya, but in the Middle East, it'll not have a leg to stand on. And how does that help or detract in as far as Turkey is concerned? Because Turkey is one player we have not spoken about.
So Turkey is the main was the main player which orchestrated the whole thing in Syria on 27 November. And Turkey, in fact, people say that Turkey did this in Syria. To be fair to them, they have been wanting to have this dialogue with Assad for more than a year now, trying to have some kind of understanding where the the democratic forces, the Kurdish forces, do not interfere or do not create chaos into to the Turkish territory. But Assad was not willing to have any talks on it, and so the situation kept on lingering. And in last 2 months, there were some attacks also on the Turkish border by the Syrian democratic forces. So, from a Turkish point of view, they sensed this opportunity when the ceasefire announcement was made with Hezbollah on 26th of November, and they had everything in place. It was only some kind of a go ahead that was required because the build up had already taken place. So Turkey is looking at major benefits, major gains from this Syrian debacle. And if it is able to have some arrangement with Al Shara in terms of reining in the Kurdish forces
Yeah.
and having some buffer kind of a blockage border, Turkey will be in a good position, sir.
Okay, so that's where Turkey is. Turkey is this in a good position. UAE and Saudi are in a good position. Iran is down. Syria, of course, Israel and USA are in the saddle. They are in actually pole position, right? Uh, Houthis, I'll not leave Houthis because Houthis are still continuing. That's a different game. I think they'll get dried out in due course. That's my view. Uh, let's talk of China. Where does China stand at the end of this? Because now I heard, I mean, today or yesterday I read where China is trying to send an ambassador, representative to the Middle East again to get their presence felt. Do you think they'll be successful? Where do you see China's hand in this?
So, China, sir, firstly, has always played a very silent kind of a game in Middle East, and it has always banked on its influence as far as economics and trade is concerned. But in last about 2 years, we saw that China was also moving in very heavily as far as politics was concerned. So we had Jinping's visit to Riyadh in December 22, where the first China and GCC summit took place, and they made some major announcement as far as trade and security and defense is concerned. They signed some 34 MOUs bilaterally between China and Saudi Arabia. China already has a 25 years old, strategic partnership with Iran, and its BRI, the Belt Road Initiative, passes through majority of the Middle East, especially the north of Persian Gulf. But the thing about China is it does not get involved militarily in any kind of a conflict. It always plays its hand from the back without being seen in the front, and that is what it is banking on. Even sending its ambassador or special envoy, as you are saying, I have not followed that report, is a part of the same thing, to see how it can
Yeah,
help or assist from the back without
side.
coming in the forefront.
Yeah, but virtually, if my assessment, and it's actually a lot of people have said, China has, Chinese influence has bottomed out in this area at this point of time because it has not been able to influence anything. Of course, 2 years back, Xi Jinping had, mediated between Iran and Saudi, and
Saudi
at
Arabia.
that point of time, everyone said, Iran was on the, sorry, China is at the peak and it is going to edge out USA and all that. But today, as you assess it, China is out of the game. And China, I mean, my way of looking at it, that the special representative is going to try and find his feet back again. The economic role will continue, because they already projects on and all that. They'll continue, but I don't see. This is my view again. I don't see that influence coming back with China had. Of course, there are other issues why China's influence won't come here because it's got domestic problems, and Mr. Trump is going to actually come out with all guns blazing against China. So China has to take care of other issues rather than trying to expand its influence out here. So that's where China is. Oh, at the end of the whole story, I'd like you to spend a couple of minutes on India's skin in it. Where do you see India going, and where do you see India's role in this, and how a position, whatever you want to say.
Sir, I think India has managed the situation of this war and in the Middle East very well in the last 15, 16 months. It has ticked almost all the boxes that it was required to do. We discussed last time, Modi was the first person to call out the terror attack on Israel. Not only expressing solidarity in that sense with his partner Israel, but also standing by India's position on anything to do with terror. But at the same time, within a few days, when the officials' deliberations and statement said that we stand by the cause of Palestinian people and the two-state solution. India has also said that while Israel is in pursuit of its politico-military goals, there should be a sense of not having indiscriminate civilian casualties. We have also sent humanitarian aid to Gaza through Jordan and through Egypt, which has been well received. And perhaps in the entire region or in the entire system, if there is one country which has bipartisan support and trust, whether it is
It is
Palestinians
India.
or the Israelis or the Iranians, it is only India. India may not be part of the negotiations for the peace deal or other things, but in terms of trust, Palestinians trust India, Iranians trust India, Israelis trust India, and Arab world trust India. So only thing is, right now, our like our foreign ministry has also said, India does not want to get into this regional, mess which is there, and it is waiting for what is to happen. As far as our
Yeah.
economic interests are concerned, except for
This
the
is
IMEC corridor, which has got stalled even before it started. Rest everything is going on. Not much has affected us as far as Gaza war is concerned. And to my understanding, yes, there has been some disruption in trade because of the Red Sea route being blocked by the Houthis, but there have been several Indian flagged ships which have been permitted to pass through the Red Sea in the past, especially in the earlier months of the war. So that may be the only thing that has affected India directly. The Red Sea route being blocked. Other than that, not much has happened as far as direct interests are concerned.
you see the Red Sea block route being reopened now?
Yes, Houthis have said that. Houthis have said that
Yeah,
moment the ceasefire is effective, our aim of supporting the war would be over, and the Red Sea route would be reopened.
reopen. So that's a big achievement actually at the end of the day. If the Red Sea opens, the trade eases and a lot of things. So to that extent, yeah, I think we've covered. Is there any other point you want to touch on, or we have covered the whole lot?
I think we've covered